Ricky Gervais and Leslie Ash with EastEnder Nigel Harman. The stars are out for Jonathan Ross at 10:35. But right now on BBC One, a quick look at the clock.
Good evening and welcome to Have I Got News For You? I'm Alexander Armstrong. In the news this week, as the football ends early, the BBC announces there's another chance for viewers to see a Ruby Wax special. The Mayor of Aberystwyth admits he could have picked a better day to film the town's new tourism video. And the Winemakers Association predicts that this year's vintage of Norfolk Chardonnay could be the best yet. With Ian Hislop tonight is a comedian and presenter who once dangled a member of his theatre audience over a balcony. But apart from that, the Queen seemed to enjoy the rest of the Royal Variety performance. Please welcome Phil Jupitus. And on Paul Merton's team is the political editor of the Sunday Express, who was once involved in a row over female journalists being ignored by male colleagues at press briefings, or something like that. I wasn't really paying attention, sorry. Please welcome Julia Hartley Brewer. Round one is where we start this week. Ian and Phil, guess who's coming to town?
Of course. George is coming over next week. The CIA have made a lot of ludicrous demands, haven't they, about they want London closed down.
They want central London cleared of everything. People, vehicles,
buildings.
It is important so the gunships can fly over his head. Drop ticker tape on him so he imagines we're happy to see him.
They're on high alert because he choked on a pretzel once. But over here, there's a whole different range of snacks. There's the quaver, the cheese football. Who knows what he could do with a bowl of Bombay mix? The man could kill himself.
Do you know how many personnel he's bringing over with him?
250 armed Americans who can just basically use us, the British people, for target practice, should they fancy it.
Well, I mean, given their record on friendly fire, I wouldn't be surprised to see the whole of central London blitzed.
The Bush entourage is 700 strong, though, just to answer my own question, is 700 strong. How did officials describe the size of the entourage?
700 strong.
Shortly after that, they described it as perfectly normal for a major overseas trip. Bet they haven't told Bush it's overseas. He is also bringing a briefcase carried by a military aide which contains the launch codes for America's nuclear arsenal.
He doesn't want to lose that in customs, does he? If I was in customs, I'd have him bent over the desk as soon as he came through the door. I'd be pulling my glove on. So, Mr. Bush.
Is this your what's it?
What is the one thing that's not going to be happening on this occasion?
Oh, the ride down the mile with the Queen.
It's been cancelled.
With the cheering crowds?
Yes.
Because there was an element missing.
According to the Daily Express, whenever President Bush travels abroad, an aide takes with him a briefcase containing the launch codes for America's nuclear arsenal and a packet of crayons to keep him quiet on the plane. George Bush, who will be staying at Buckingham Palace, is expected to face protests wherever he goes. According to The Times, one group is urging protesters to moon at the president. Dozens of people dropping their trousers at the palace, and it isn't even a staff party. Paul and Julia, scan this.
David Blunkett, this is the ID card, which he's very keen on.
It's not going to work for Michael Howard, though, is it? Because his picture's going to disappear at night, and the fingerprint mysteriously gone.
That one said demonstrator on it. Presumably they're bringing it in for the state visit of Mr. Bush.
But, I mean, David Blunkett, we just tell him we've done it. Give him a dummy card. There we are. We've all got these now, David. There's your one.
I've had the They've ruled out compulsory ID cards for now, but Blunkett wants a compulsory IDS card so you can identify former Tory leaders. You can't tell the difference between them, so you need to have ID
They would
cards.
need an identity, presumably, for
That would work too.
If you want people to buy them, why don't you make ID scratch cards and then they could... It's me!
You could win a night in prison. It'd be fantastic.
Yes, this is David Blunkett's long-term plan to issue everyone in Britain with an ID card. Cards will have to be applied for at post offices. According to The Times, millions of people will be issued with identity cards within 3 years. Not if they're queuing at my post office, they won't. David Blunkett claims that undesirables will be kept out of the country by techniques such as iris recognition and fingerprinting. Quite how that'll work with Abu Hamza is anyone's guess. Ian and Phil, a new dawn for you.
Oh, good Lord, it's Elton. And there's the Proclaimers back together again. God bless them. And Elvis Costello. Marvellous. And there are the Brady Bunch. Here's a story of the Tory party. And there is Robbie Williams. The gorgeous, pouting pop minstrel himself. It's the reshuffle, isn't it? It's Michael's brought in an extraordinarily streamlined cabinet.
It's slimmed down, that's why Ken Clark couldn't go in it.
Well, madam, I object to that timbre of joke.
Well, like I say, they've appointed 4 wise men.
4 wise men that includes John Major, IDS...
Ken Clark, William
Ken Clark
Hague.
and William Hague. 2 wise men. I heard yesterday that they've given Boris a job. Is that true?
Yes, something in charge of paper clips, I think.
They have.
No, he was deputy chairman.
Yeah,
Is that true?
it is true.
Well, as long as
It's
they
quite
don't give him
scary,
a
isn't it?
You came out for Boris on the Today programme. You suggested him as Shadow Education Minister, didn't you?
Well, I thought, yes,
Got
well,
a
you
lot
know,
to learn.
I think so.
Boris runs The Spectator, and they gave their awards to parliamentarians this week. And the top award went to Michael Howard, who's Boris's boss in the Tory party. I just point that out for reasons of malice, really.
I was at the awards lunch, and he did assure everyone that it had all been arranged a long time beforehand, and he had no idea that it was going to happen at this particular week.
Well, the fact that Boris has no idea is not news, is it?
Who's been giving the Tories some free advice this week?
Alistair Campbell? He wrote a piece, sort of, I'm being helpful to Howard, here are my suggestions.
Give up now.
He's back. I notice we haven't got a question on the Brown-Blair row. Is this just BBC bias again?
I should think so.
Easy pop at the Tories and leave the real villains alone.
Well, this is this week's Tory party reshuffle. One of Michael Howard's first tasks will be to find a new building for Conservative HQ. The spokesman said, we do not know whether we should rent or buy. I'd go for rent. The Sun printed a handy guide to the new high-powered shadow cabinet and their key qualities, describing David Davis as ruthlessly ambitious, Maurice Saatchi, multi-millionaire advertising guru, David Willits, highly intellectual, and Theresa May, known for her stylish shoes. And she makes a lovely cup of tea, apparently. The new Shadow Home Secretary, David Davis, used to be in the SAS. Ironic, really, as it was Ian Duncan Smith who managed to get in and out without anyone noticing. Paul and Julia, will it ever end?
It's Prince Charles wiping something off his hands. God knows what they're doing. This is the story that's there. You can see it on the front of the papers. There's Michael Fawcett. He's the former butler. I think he's the one on the right. What's happening beneath the screen there, we can't really say. Does everybody know what this story's about? Because I don't.
I think you're the only person in the country.
Yeah, what's
I
about?
went to my local village bonfire a week ago thinking, oh, I'm a bit in the know, I know this. And everyone there knew it before me. They'd all typed it into Google.
Oh, right.
Rumour, Prince Charles, click.
So they found...
So this is a story that we don't know anything about.
And which isn't true anyway.
Which Ian says isn't true anyway.
But the reason the story came out is this man who used to be his PR advisor, Mike Bolland, has got a new job at the News of the World. So one of the first things he did is say, oh, actually, when I was in the job, I asked whether Prince Charles was gay. So his new employer, the News of the World, could write, Gay Charles? Question.
Was it not this guy, Michael Pete, that had apparently asked a question?
They're all these sort of men who help the royal family have this sort of image.
What did Fawcett get when he quit the job?
A bad back?
Firm handshake.
Firm handshake,
got a
more
lot
considerably
of
more
money.
than that, yeah. He got about £500,000 worth.
After the
consultancy
Royal Gift scandal, they
Yeah.
had to get rid of someone, so he left with a large sum of money.
He's no longer part of Prince Charles's inner circle.
He's now an events...
You're making up your own jokes and then groaning at them. What is the matter with you?
On the subject of Diana, which we kind of are, did anyone see the startling...
Topical news quiz. She's not
Yep.
dead, is she?
Anyone see the startling and previously unreleased image of Diana in the Mirror this week?
Waxworks. Was this
Yeah.
dodgy Waxworks?
Yeah. There it is, it's a waxwork from Tussauds. Not, admittedly, Madame Tussauds, but...
Bert
Louis
Tussauds.
Tussauds. It's a waxwork
Is
museum.
it
in-
Louis Tussauds in
Louis
Brighton?
Tussauds in Great Yarmouth. He has another.
Who's that?
I don't know who that is, but I bet Liza Minnelli would marry it.
That is indeed Prince William. Next.
Sweet
Who's that?
That's Tony Blair.
It is Tony Blair.
Oh, why?
He's a lot more waxy in person.
And lastly, who's this?
Oh, that's Lord Lucan.
Graham Gooch, judging by the
It's not
stoush.
Ian Botham, is it?
It is, it's Ian Burton.
When does a waxwork become libelous?
This is the return of Prince Charles from a trip abroad to face more tabloid allegations about his private life. Princess Diana got the stories about Charles from royal servant George Smith after she visited him at the Priory, where he was being treated for depression, hallucinations and alcoholism. She plied him with drink and secretly taped his conversation. Truly the queen of people's hearts. So at the end of that round, the scores are Ian and Phil, 4, Paul and Julia, 4.
Hooray.
Thank you.
And so to the tabloid round, Ian and Phil, what kind of fish are you?
This was something to do with job interviews.
Is this the classic, if you were a car, what kind of car? If you were a fish, what would you be? Would you
What-
be a shark?
What would you be? Yeah.
Well, it depends what job I was applying for.
OK. Accountant.
I'd be a sort of flounder.
Excellent.
If it was an estate agent, I'd be a shark. If it was pensions officer,
Yeah? Go on.
Halibut.
You see, regardless of job, I'd be a sexy carp. With the little things.
is that a type of carp? I thought they were koi.
I actually used to work in employment in the civil service in Tilbury. The most frequently asked question at interviews was, could you stop hitting me, please?
So what sort of jobs were people looking for back then in your...
Well, it was the 80s, so there were none to give them, so we just kind of sat there.
I worked at the Department of Employment in Tooting Employment Office in the late 70s.
You're in the civil service?
Yeah,
Myself and Paul are bound by the Official Secrets Act.
absolutely.
Yeah?
You've
Stitched
just
for life.
both broken it.
Have we?
Are there any policemen in?
No, they didn't name the bloke, so... Not, yeah.
Oh, didn't we, Mr. Perkins?
This is the survey which found that job seekers are being asked ever more ludicrous questions in their interviews. Questions included, if you were a fish, what fish would you be? If you were a roundabout, what would you sing? And most ridiculous of all, if you were leader of the Tory party, how would you win the next election? Incidentally, Michael Howard's answers were Barracuda, Eleanor Rigby, and now you're just being stupid. One applicant was asked, if you had a wishing well, how would you find out how much money had been thrown in by the end of the day? Although, to be fair, he was applying for the job of collecting money from a wishing well at the end of the day. Paul and Julia, here's yours. Rally, rally, unfair.
This is the World Rally Championship that was driving through Wales, and part of the route was on the public highway, and so they got done for speeding.
17 of them got done. One
Yeah.
guy got done 7 times in
Yeah.
one morning on the same stretch of road.
Is this what the police are doing?
It's what the Welsh police are doing.
Yeah.
Coming over here in their fancy cars. We'll see about that. I put a lollipop lady 2 miles up the road.
Do you know what the driver's defence was?
We're in a race.
They said they thought they were driving within the speed limit. We've all tried that. They're only doing 50 miles an hour, but in Wales they think that might turn you into butter. This is the news that 17 of the world's top rally drivers have been fined for speeding. At this year's event, officers were again out in force. "I've never seen so many police at a rally," said a delighted burglar. Next, as a special feature this week, 2 tabloid stories from China. Ian and Phil, here's your cracker. Ling Ling Hobnob Hoo-Ha.
I know this story. Ling Ling's a panda, Hobnob's a biscuit, and Hoo-Ha is a Gilbert and Sullivan character. There's a story about, there's a factory, a special factory in China that makes biscuits for pandas.
Yeah.
Bamboo shoot biscuits in the shape of hobnobs, presumably, or the Chinese equivalent of what a hobnob is, and there's a pretty big hoo-ha about it. I'll be honest, I didn't get to the end of the story.
Presumably, if you've built a factory, you want there to be a lot of pandas out there. I understand they're quite rare. What kind of... It's not a very good businessman that goes, "I know where the money is. Panda biscuits."
The biscuit has many advantages over traditional bamboo. It's tastier, more nutritious, and it can't be turned into crap furniture. The bamboo biscuits are high in nutrition but low in calories. According to one zookeeper, the pandas are delighted with their low-fat chow, as indeed is the man in charge of the project, Low-Fat Chow. Paul and Julia, your Pearl of Orient. Olympic rules for Chinese checkers.
It's the Chinese police have got a 250-page guide on how to handle people coming over to the Olympics.
Right.
And it's like how to give them directions and how to stop foreigners from excessive drinking.
So it's 2008 we're talking about here.
Yeah.
This is a bit early for them to be doing all this, isn't it?
A lot to learn. This is how they suggest dealing with a bomb suspect. "Police, we are here to search your room. Foreigner, I'm working as a cook. Why would I keep a bomb? I only make an Indian pancake. Police, shut up so we can finish our search."
What if the foreigner doesn't say that? Do they just... Then they have to find one that does.
Then you are allowed to stone him with panda biscuits.
What was the other great Chinese myth that was exploded this year?
That you can see the moon from the Great Wall of China.
That opening a panda biscuit factory will make any money whatsoever.
It was, of course, that you can't see the Great Wall of China from space, and it took a Chinese astronaut to find this out. American astronauts presumably just didn't know where China was. Yep, this is a guide issued to Beijing policemen in preparation for the 2008 Olympics. One example of a potential exchange between a policeman and a criminal goes as follows. "Police, you injured him badly. Man, so what? Police, perhaps you'll be charged with assault. Man, oh my God." Anything plausible?
In this country, the stage directions man and police would be interchanged, though, wouldn't they?
The Greek authorities have also issued a phrasebook for the 2004 Olympics, including such phrases as, "It's not ready yet." "Can you come back next year?" And "How are you at building stadiums?" The odd one out round is next. Ian and Phil, your 4 are Ewan McGregor, Glenn Campbell, Alistair Campbell, and Jungly Barry.
Ewan McGregor there deciding what sort of fish he is.
Well, Jungly Barry's the one who was mistaken for Lord Lucan.
Yes.
And someone thought, well, someone sold the story to the Sunday Telegraph, who said, "Is this Lord Lucan?" in huge letters, and then, "No," in very small letters underneath.
Well, it'd be terrible if it turns out that Lord Lucan is actually one of ZZ Top.
ZZ Top?
Yeah.
Isn't
The
it
rock
ZZ
band.
Top?
Oh, get you!
Is it anything to do with playing pipes?
It is, actually, yeah.
All right, here we go.
Jungly Barry plays the pipes.
Look at him go. He's got another 8 pipes in his beard. He can just swap them up.
Alistair Campbell plays the bagpipes, noticeably.
Glenn Campbell plays the bagpipes, and Ewan McGregor's the odd one out.
It's actually not the right answer, but you've got everything but the odd one out.
Yeah, who?
The odd one out is Jungly Barry.
Oh, he plays the panpipes,
He
and
doesn't
the others
play
play the bagpipes.
That's absolutely right. Yeah. So just how Scottish is Campbell?
Not very.
There he is.
Ah.
Is he playing the bagpipes or sexually abusing an octopus? It's very difficult to say.
Didn't he busk in the south of France with
He
them?
did,
When you're in between writing erotica for a Forum magazine.
That's exactly right, yeah.
Presumably his erotica was, and then he strode manfully into the room, cast his bagpipes to one side, and loved her like no woman ever had. His pipes squeaking quietly in the corner.
No, no. As he held the bagpipes in his tender arms, he couldn't help but inflate her stomach.
Yes, as Campbell himself said, whoever invented the bagpipes was clearly into foreplay. Tall tongues, teeth, lips and gentle squeezes.
You don't get the same noise, though, do you? Do you?
You're doing it wrong.
Yeah. How are Glenn Campbell and Alistair Campbell related?
They're sisters.
What inspired Glenn Campbell to take up the bagpipes?
Loneliness?
He said that during a visit to Scotland, while having lunch near Loch Fyne, a piper started to play. It was one of the most beautiful moments of my life. Ruined by those bloody bagpipes, you know? The answer is they all play the bagpipes, with the exception of jungly Barry Halpin, who could play everything but. The Daily Telegraph reported Barry Halpin was a teacher who spent 30 years in Goa. They do get long holidays, don't they? According to the promotional brochure for his latest tour, Glenn Campbell's concerts will consist of just Glenn, an acoustic guitar, and some yodeling. So book early. Paul and Julia, you're four. Boris Becker, Arnold Schwarzenegger, Bridget O'Shaughnessy, and the Zeta-Jones Douglases.
He's never going to get that horse in that cupboard, is he?
No. Which one are you looking at? Oh, Bridget O'Shaughnessy is a fictional character. That's a still from the Maltese Falcon.
It's to do with something she does in the film. Something Ian knows everything about.
Oh.
Goats?
She's a journalist.
Is it legal action?
She's a blackmailer.
It's a magnum opus.
She drinks champagne. She eats ice creams. I don't know. Give us
Magnum gun. She kills somebody with a gun.
Magnum.
Magnum PI? She's a private investigator.
Yes!
Oh, I see, and I'm something to do with Private Eye.
Yes.
Oh, that's awfully good.
Something like that.
But she's not a private investigator in the film, is she?
No, she gets one, though.
Oh, she gets one. OK, yeah, she hires Sam Spade to try and find the Maltese Falcon. So, private detective was hired to sort out what Boris Becker was up to, and the same with Arnold Schwarzenegger, and the same with Michael Douglas, hired a detective to see if Catherine Zeta-Jones was really Welsh. And so, therefore, I don't know.
You're very close. They have all hired a private detective to investigate someone else, except Arnold Schwarzenegger, who's hired someone to investigate himself.
What am I doing? And where am I doing it? I need to know.
Apparently to look into his groping past. He felt perhaps a third party's word would be more trustworthy than his. And Boris Becker sent an investigator to take a nappy from Angela Ermakova's bin. So he checked for DNA.
Well, that backfired, didn't it? Because it matched.
Talking about her early relationship with Michael Douglas, Catherine told reporters, "When I first met Michael, I didn't want to jump straight into his bed. At least not while the safety bars and the IV drip were still there." During Catherine's wedding to Michael Douglas, a member of the paparazzi sneaked into the reception. According to the Daily Mail, he took a series of pictures with a secret camera hanging from the waistband of his trousers. He thought he had some great close-ups of Michael before realising the camera was the wrong way round. So, as we head towards the final round, the scores are looking like this. Paul and Julia, 8. Ian and Phil, 9.
Hooray.
Missing Words is the final round, featuring this week's guest publication, Bonsai Today. So let's go with... Yoghurt gets what?
Spelt wrong.
5 O-levels.
Job in Shadow Cabinet. The EU has launched one of its periodic bits of madness. Yoghurt's no longer to be yoghurt, unless it comes from, I think it's Bulgaria. It's now got to be... No, this is serious.
Yeah?
This has got to be... It's in the Constitution. It's got to be fermented milk-type drink.
Yeah.
And that is actually the right answer. Yoghurt gets culture shock. This is the news that the EU wants to replace the word yoghurt with the phrase mild alternate culture, heat-treated fermented milk. By the time you ask for it, your thrush has cleared up all by itself. Next, what is the key to good bonsai technique?
Making sure you have really, really tiny trees.
Watering with a very small watering can.
Much more basic than that, it is not allowing the internodes to become elongated.
I was just about to say that.
I'm just going to show you why. Before
Oh, yes.
and after.
No!
See, the world of difference. Next, elf men jailed for what?
Holding bonsai tree top protest.
Gnome abuse.
Hobbit fondling.
Orc squeezing.
No, it's corruption. It's the French petrol firm Elf.
You're absolutely right.
And
elf men...
they bribed a lot of French politicians. I don't want to harp on this European corruption theme, but have a look.
That's right, the answer is stealing £210 million. This, of course, refers to fraudulent oil company executives from France, and not to the race of tiny, funny-faced, half-human mischief makers, but I can see why I'd be confused. Next, smelly. Try what?
Living in a canal. Nobody will know if you're smelly.
Try becoming the 8th dwarf.
Try telly.
It is, exactly. Try telly. Producers are looking for the person with the loudest farts in Britain for a new documentary about embarrassing hygiene problems to be shown on BBC Three. BBC Three, you see, well worth the extra £5 on the licence fee.
That's public service, is it, that particular show?
Next, good bonsai pruning means knowing what as well as what.
Knowing when to cut, as well as knowing when not to cut.
It is actually the right answer,
What?
pretty much. Answer, which branches to cut off, which branches not to cut off. Just as intelligent people know which hobbies never to consider and which hobbies never to consider. And lastly, if you're what when you're old, there's something wrong with you.
7.
Dead.
Is it celibate?
Is it Sellafield?
It's not, it's not.
Is it Sellotape? Could be one of them.
No, the answer is if you're still acting. That's Jane Horrocks, who claims that actors get madder and madder as they get older. Nonsense. Just look at Brian Blessing. That brings us to the end of tonight's contest, and the final scores are as follows. Paul and Julia on 9, Ian and Phil 13.
Oh.
But before we go, there's just time for our caption competition.
Finally a job I'm qualified for.
Do you want freedom prize with that?
Thank you. Next.
This wasn't what they said the job description was at Buckingham Palace.
And I leave you with news that there's photographic evidence as to why Saddam's Republican Guard weren't as elite as they made out to be. In Nepal, there's conclusive proof of the existence of Bigfoot. And confronting reporters, an angry Paul Daniels denies he's been having Botox injections. Good night.
The Boys back on BBC One in 2 weeks' time. Comedy on BBC Two in just a tick with as time goes by. And you don't want to miss tonight's EastEnders. It's Cat's Wedding right now on BBC Three.